Is your ego holding you back? This is one of the greatest and most important questions in all of psychological performance. It's also one of the most difficult topics because ego is important because it's energy. It's energy to achieve. It's energy to motivate, to drive, to inspire, to push forward. It's usually for all the wrong reasons. But that said, it's energy. And when you're looking to achieve something or you're coaching someone, as I have for so many years, great performers to achieve something, you can never ignore powerful energy sources, whether they're negative or positive. A lot of coaches don't understand that. But energy is energy. And the only problem with negative energy is it can be very destructive, as we all know. So ego is probably the greatest example because you can just say, well, just push your ego aside, push your ego down, check your ego at the door, and all these sayings that have been, talked about over the years. And that's all fine, but you're pushing away energy, and so it's not really that smart. The key is to control the ego, and I'll tell you exactly what all these great performers that I've worked with over the years, and also performers I've observed, have done. So the key secret to the whole thing, and that's recognizing from the start of any thought process that you might have that no matter what you achieve, no matter what you do, no matter who you are, no matter how much money you have, no matter how much status you've achieved, all of those things mean absolutely nothing compared to the concept, to the idea that you alone, without all your trappings, and mine as well, we are enough. We were enough when we were born. We didn't have to do anything. We're whole. We're not trying to make ourselves whole, although a lot of people feel like that, and I felt like that as well, and as a young person, where you feel like you're trying to fill a hole. Well, the objective reality was the hole was never there. You're enough. You're enough by yourself. You're enough if you're rich. You're enough if you're poor. You're enough if you're smart. You're enough if you're not that smart. You're enough if you're good looking. You're enough if you're not good looking. You're enough. You're enough from day one, from the time you were born. Now, I know there are messages, especially in religious teachings, that we're born sinners. Well, that's part of the problem. That's part of why people have such a problem with ego. It's one of the things that the exceptions I take with religious doctrine in some religions, where they say, "Hey, you are born a sinner." No, you were not born a sinner. You're born enough. And once you recognize that, okay, that's just messaging designed to sell you to trying to control people. That's what that's all about. That's a whole nother video for a whole nother time. That's just telling you right away you're insufficient, and guess what? We're going to sell you salvation. We're going to sell you the thing that you're missing. Well, that's patently ridiculous, and it's absorbed by a lot of people, unfortunately, which is why ego is such a problem for so many people, because ego is basically, when it expresses itself in a negative form, what it really is, and we've all done it, including me lots of times, is that we're trying to prove to someone that we're enough. We're enough because we drive a fancy car, or we live in a big house, or we have fancy clothes, or a fancy watch, or we've achieved some kind of status. Beyond that, maybe it's a position. Maybe it's a degree. You know why a lot of people get PhDs and master's degrees? Ego, because they don't think they're enough. Well, they've been sold a bill of goods. They were enough when they were born, before the PhD. Way before they could walk, right when they started. Why wouldn't it make an argument that says a baby is not enough? Okay, you're whole. You don't need to be made whole. You are whole from the beginning. And if you start from that premise, ego will never be a problem. I mean, that said, that's a perfect world, right? We're all human and we're emotional creatures, so ego creeps in when people attack us and we feel less than. Then we attack back, and that's coming from ego. And it's easy to do. It's easy to fall into. We've all fallen into it, and odds are we will all fall into it, including me, many times throughout the course of our lives. And it's a falsehood. The falsehood is you're not enough, and I'm not enough. And if you change the premise to you were always enough, you were born enough, nothing you can do, say, or achieve will ever make you more whole than you are now, and than you always have been. And once you start with that premise that that bigger house or that more money in your pocket or that next girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever you're going after, whatever you're chasing so hard to prove, has already been proven. It was proven from the day you were born. Now, if you can accept that premise and operate from that premise, well, now you can enjoy the process of achieving success. As a matter of fact, I'll take it to another level. You can achieve the level of success you want to for the right reasons, for intrinsic, internal reasons, not extrinsic, trying to prove something to somebody else, right? I've had entrepreneurs tell me this so many times. I've done it myself, fallen into the same trap. I'm going to prove something to somebody. It's energy, and it works in terms of motivating people. It's a very negative energy because you're telling yourself, I will not be enough until fill in the blank. It's a false premise. It was never true. Now, again, are there people, institutions, programs, people selling things saying, hey, when you drive this car, when you have this ring, when you have red bottom shoes, when you live in this neighborhood, when you join this club, well, you will have arrived. Oh, Madison Avenue has made a fortune selling us that premise. And it's always been false. It's a sales pitch. And we buy into it. It's very easy to buy into it. The ego can be very, very susceptible. Why? Because most people have low self-esteem because they've been beat up. It's not really their fault. They've been beat up their entire lives and been told they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they're not tall enough, they're not short enough, they're not, whatever. Not enough, not enough, not enough. Most people hear far more negative messaging about themselves throughout their entire lives, no matter how successful they are. They hear negative messaging about themselves their entire lives. And so what happens? Well, they end up with a very low self-esteem. And as a result, ego gets a chance to grow and take over and destroy relationships. And even maybe more important than destroying out external relationships with other people, it destroys the relationship you have with yourself. Because again, it's saying to yourself, I'm not enough until I get this. I'm not enough until I achieve this. When I'm a doctor, then I'll be full. I'll be somebody. When I get that house, when I do whatever it is I'm trying to do. And it takes the joy out of achieving. It takes the joy out of the journey, and the journey is all we have, because at the end of the day, guys, nobody makes it out alive, and all of our achievements turn to dust. When people say, I want to be remembered for, yeah, that's a delusion. Okay, you're going to be remembered for a while, and then you'll be forgotten like the rest of us, unless you've done something. You're dead anyway. But okay, that's one of those delusions. People say, well, my legacy is this, my legacy was that. Is that nothing wrong with that? But odds are no one's going to remember. So the point is, I'm not trying to be morbid, but the point is, this is objective reality. Okay, enjoy the journey while you got the journey to enjoy, because it ain't gonna last forever, my friends. It just doesn't. So why not enjoy the process instead of having to struggle with ego saying, I wish I were enough. I wish I were enough. When I get this, I'm going to feel so good. I'm standing on the hill, with my great achievement, whatever it may be. I'll be whole. Finally, I'll feel whole. You know what? You won't. I promise you. You won't. Because if you weren't whole before, nothing you ever do or achieve will ever make you whole. Because it's an internal game. It's a mind game. You were whole from the beginning. And so point of it is, to wrap this up, is if you start from the idea that you are enough right now and you always were, I don't care what any religion says, I don't care what any people say, you've been sold a bill of goods, and so have I, and so is the world, frankly. And that's why so many people suffer from self-esteem, and they're out there struggling, when you only have so many days to live. So many days to, why not enjoy the journey in peace and fun and achieve and enjoy each milestone as it goes? It's the only intelligent way to really live, but very few people really ever figure it out, unfortunately, because the sales pitch for more and to fill this hole that we supposedly have is very, very strong. It's very strong. There's a lot of motivation to do that to us. So start from you're already whole, and then enjoy the process of achieving, and then ego will never pop up and get out of control. And if it does, you'll know what's happening. You'll be able to curb it, tame it, use the energy in a positive way, and enjoy it. That's the key to life, right? Enjoying yourself. There's only so many days that you have. Why would you not want to enjoy it? Something to think about.